Hi guys, just wanted to say a really quick thanks if you watched my first video and you liked it and subscribed. Really appreciating the support at the minute. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and there'll be more content along the way. So today I wanted to talk about a few things that I like to think about and consider before starting a mix, or when I'm actually starting the mix itself. So the first thing on my list is reference tracks. And what you want to do is you want your band or your artist to send you a few songs which they really like the sound of. Maybe they like the sound of it sonically, or they like the sound of it just because they like the song. Anything to help you get inside their head and know exactly what they're looking for. This is really going to help when you're starting out the mix. It's going to give you a good idea of what goes where and what should take the most prominent parts, and how much bass, how much top end, what sort of sound in general. It's just really going to help you out when you're trying to get an initial idea for the piece. So I would open up Spotify or Tidal or iTunes or whatever you use, and I'd make a playlist, just add in loads of tracks that you've listened to, which the artist likes in relation to their song or this mix. And I'd keep that track on loop. Keep that playlist, on loop, listening to the stuff, even when you're out and about through headphones. Just really try and get into the kind of headspace of the artist. And if you're not a fan of the reference tracks, then it's always good to kind of expand your kind of listening library and getting used to other styles as well. So it's a good all-round kind of technique, I think. So my next tip is talking about the low end, and I'm going to use an example in Pro Tools actually. I'll cut to it in a minute just to show you what I mean. And when I'm talking about low end, I mean kind of thinking of a band as a whole. We're talking about the kick drum, the bass guitar. What else are we talking about? Maybe some lower synths, but we're not too worried about the vocals and stuff like that at this point. And when thinking about low end, you want to kind of consider what's going to take the kind of sub kind of 60 hertz kind of region, and what's going to take that kind of low end impact, so around the 100, 120, 150 hertz. This is really going to help in making it a clean low end sound and a solid foundation to the piece. So this is a track by a band called Echo Gecco, which I've been recently recording. And I'm just going to show you kind of what I would do with the low end in this song in relation between the kick and the bass. So I'm already hearing that the kick is going to take that kind of 120, 150 hertz range, and the bass is probably going to take a lot of the sub. That bass is just coming out of his pedal, which is a Sans amp DI, but we've also got a completely clean DI as well, which sounds like this. And that's going to give us some really clean low end. So let's just listen to the kick and the bass together. Go from the top. So what I would do is I would pull up, I'm going to use Slate Digital for now, so I'm using the mix rack. Always takes a minute to load. I think this Mac's slowly getting out of date. Here we go. So let's have another listen. So I would want to make... I'd want to make the kind of 100 hertz a bit more prominent, maybe a little bit more attack as well, and maybe kind of cut around the 200. So let's have a listen to that. And I might even put that filter in as well. A little bit of compression. Let's just loop a bit of this. And now if we take the bass on that as well, let's load up our mix rack. So we're going to say that the bass is going to take a lot of the subs. So let's have a look here. Well, let's have a listen first, actually. Yeah, so maybe like 80 hertz. Give that a kind of 3 dB boost. Now we boosted 3 kilohertz on the kick, so let's try maybe 4. Give it a little bit of top end. And then let's maybe cut somewhere in the mids where we know the guitar's going to be. And then we're going to go one step further with another EQ. We're going to go to the 100 hertz and we're actually going to cut a bit. And then back in with a compression just to squash that down. Yeah, so as you can hear, they're working together nicely. We've got the kick doing, providing some of that low-end thump, and we've got the bass providing the sub. So the next thing I would do is I would consider what is the lead track in your piece, or in the piece you're mixing. So say if it's like a pop band, a rock band, or an indie band, it tends to be the lead vocals. So you've got kind of, you've got drum kit, bass, few guitars maybe, keys, and then you've got the vocals. And in today's kind of standards of modern music and modern production, it tends to be the vocals that are the key and most important thing in a mix. In some songs, you're not going to have a key instrument. Maybe it's an instrumental track and the parts are shared equally, but then you can kind of still apply this to think about, well, what needs to be heard at a certain time? What needs to take that kind of foreground position? So what I'd do is I would get an EQ and I would choose one point on it and I would like kind of move it between the upper mid kind of region. So between, let's say, about 1.5 kilohertz to 5 kilohertz. You just kind of want to sweep it around there with a little boost on it and see where, and stop where you feel that lead instrument is most prominent. And when I say prominent, I don't mean it's the loudest or it's got the most top end. I mean where you can really hear the articulation, the detail in the sound, and it really starts to cut through. Now, I'm not saying you have to EQ that and compress straight away. You don't have to start with this in a mix, but you could just do that and then you could turn the EQ off, but just remember where you've left it. So usually for me, I find it's between 2 and 3 kilohertz. But remember where you've left it, and that will really impact how you mix the other tracks. The final thing I'd consider is your use of reverb. So when I started mixing a few years ago now, the thing I always used to do is I would use multiple reverbs, different plugins, different lengths, even different types of reverbs. I think with the amount of plugins and software that we have access to these days, it's very easy to just go completely overboard. And I found that it was really kind of making my mixes sound really messy in terms of their acoustics. I think when you start out, it's way more important than you realise. It kind of, a lot of the time we kind of feel it as opposed to hear it, and it's those things that we feel that are really hard to get across in a mix. So here's what I would do. I would choose one reverb of one length, of one type as well, and I would have it on a track, like on a channel, maybe a stereo channel, and then I would send everything to that reverb. And when I say everything, I don't mean every single track, but I mean your vocals are going to go to that, a bit of the guitars, maybe a little bit of drums as a whole, just to give it a sense of space. And that's really going to put the band or the artist or the ensemble in one kind of coherent acoustic space. And that's really going to tie together the tracks and tie together the frequencies that are being cut or boosted in the tracks. And not only that, but it's really going to help with the silence between the audio as well. So I'll cut in a little demonstration in Pro Tools of what I mean by that as well. I think it's always really helped me out. So I'll just show you how I do it in the DAW. Okay, so this is an example of a different track, and it's really simple. It's just a solo female vocal and piano. So we got piano left and right, which were AKG 414s, and the vocals, which was a Shure SM7. So in this, I'm going to show the example of what we can do with reverb to kind of make these two things glue together. They're both quite close, and because they're very different kind of frequency ranges, they're going to need tying together somehow, and I think we're going to get that through this kind of reverb trick. So let's have a quick listen to it dry.
Oh, Skylark, have you anything to say to me? Won't you tell me where my love can be? Is there a meadow in the mist?
So yeah, as we can hear, really great performance as well. Absolutely lovely singing and lovely piano playing. I'll leave links to both their profiles in the description below. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift Command New, and we're going to go to a stereo auxiliary input and create that here. Just set the output to our normal kind of monitors. Let's call this Reverb, and let's just choose one reverb plugin. So let's go Reverb. I quite like Little Plate by Sound Toys. It's not too expensive either. Really nice. So let's try about 1.2 seconds maybe. Leave it fully wet because we're on an auxiliary channel, and let's just put that on about 110, 111. So let's start sending these to it. So let's set the input as, let's call that 9 and 10, and we'll just rename that and call that Reverb in. So we'll send that to there, a little bit here, and then we'll go on the piano as well, maybe just a touch less. So let's have a listen to that and see how it just glues the sound together.
Oh, Skylark, have you anything to say to me? Won't you tell me where my love can be? Is there a meadow in the mist?
So that's really tying the space between the notes together as well. And I just want to show you, if I take all of these off, what that would sound like if we did it kind of individually on tracks with different kind of reverb lengths. So let's just use Little Plate again on the vocal. It's quite a dreamy vocal, so maybe we'd want something quite long, maybe 1.8. I mean, that might be a little bit inappropriate, but I'm kind of exaggerating for now. And then on piano, what would we want? We'd want, let's have a look. Let's use this. I'm just going to apply this to the left and right for now. I wouldn't normally do that. I'd have it on a stereo channel. So we probably want more, maybe a hall sound. You know, tend to find pianos in a concert hall with a bit of pre-delay, just so we get that kind of initial attack of the note. Okay, so let's just listen if we were going to do this all on separate channels. So this is the vocal with the reverb plonk straight on, and I've got the mix mixed down quite a lot, so I've got the dry signal coming through.
Oh, Skylark, have you anything to say to me?
So sounds lovely. And then the piano. Again, sounds fine on its own, but if we listen together, those acoustics aren't going to gel together in the mix.
Oh, Skylark, have you anything to say to me?
Let's compare that to what we had. So we're going to mute these, and we're going to turn these sends back on to the reverb, and you're going to hear, especially, listen to the relationship between the piano and the voice.
to say to me? Won't you tell me where my love can be? Is there a meadow in the mist where someone...
Great. So that just, in my opinion, that will be more successful, and you can use that on a number of tracks. It doesn't have to be a minimal project. Okay, so thanks guys. Really hope that was useful to you. Always like and subscribe if you can be bothered. I really appreciate your support at the minute. And hopefully I've got a few more I've definitely got a few more videos to come in the next few weeks. Let me know if there's anything you'd like to see in the comments below. So cheers, see you next time.